Hello and welcome to the Ask Show, where you use hashtag Ask GMBN Tech down in the comments of any of our videos, and we'll try and get back to you with an answer. Okay, Nicholas Hughes said, what would be your pick for the best pads to get longevity? So metal sinter pads are the most longest living pads. Organic is a sort of a mix of compounds in resin. They're a bit softer, so they don't last as long. So avoid organic or resin pads. Go for sintered metal pads. They're the best. And if long life is your absolute ultimate goal here, then maybe some finned pads would be good as well, because they kind of draw the air in and they keep power on those long descents, so you're more likely to use the brakes on and off and not drag them when they start to heat up. Maybe you drag them and then you can wear them out a bit longer. But this is a fine sort of, fine tuning of trying to keep your pads lasting longer here, and just generally be nice to your brakes. Avoid dragging them down descents and start practicing using your brakes in controlled areas and then letting the bike go, because your suspension works much better when you're off the brakes anyway. So try a couple of those things. Now, moving on to Low Sylvester. I have a 2015 RockShox Revelation air fork. My standard rebound adjuster knob is too tight to turn, and I have to remove it and use the longer adjuster to turn it. Is that something I should be concerned about? I don't want to strip the Allen key. No, I don't think you should be concerned about it. So I don't have a RockShox Revelation or even one new enough to demonstrate the dial, but your dial is basically just like a hat that sits in that Allen key. So when you're taking that dial off and you're using your Allen key to adjust the rebound, you're doing exactly what that hat would do anyway. I can't work out why the Allen key would turn, but the dial wouldn't do it. I wonder if maybe it's got a lot of grit in it because it doesn't often have a cover. Give it a really good clean when you take it off. Inspect it for damage. Have you knocked it and bent it? Is it offline and that's why it's sort of dragging on the bottom of the fork and not turning as well? Could be a couple of things. I would say there shouldn't be any reason why using the Allen key to adjust your rebound would damage it either. Don't worry about that if you can be bothered to do it. But if you want your dial back, then think about inspecting it or maybe even replacing it. It is a replaceable part. But just a final thing is, you did say that you had it serviced recently and the tightness is still there. It's not something they would service. But hey, you've had it serviced. Why not call up the people who serviced it for you and just ask them, did they notice anything? Is there something that can be done? Can they have a look at it for you? And go from there, really. So Biker Dude 923 says, I've just got a new bike recently, a YT Capra. I absolutely love it. But this is the first one I've owned with a dropper post, and I noticed it has a bit of play. So I won't read out the full question, but you were just a bit concerned about it. A lot of dropper posts do have play from side to side. So I've got a dropper post here. So sometimes you can hold the saddle and you can move it from side to side. This one doesn't have much play at all, this Crank Brothers one here. But I've had older sort of RockShox reverbs that do move quite a lot. And it's not a problem, it's not a bad thing, as long as it's not excessive. A little sort of rattle is fine. The reason for that is because there are sort of strips that run along the inside of the shaft so that the telescopic action can move down inside. So the inner part can move down inside the outer part. And, they don't fit completely perfectly because you wouldn't want them to bind. You want it to be a nice, smooth, free action. But that does mean that they can knock against the keys. It's considering you said it was a new bike, I'm guessing it's not a problem. I wouldn't worry about it just yet. But if it was creaking or moving excessively, then yes, I would say it was a problem. But you know, it's a new bike. Consult the person that you bought it from, so YT Industries, and ask them whether they think it's a problem or if it's part of the product that you've bought. So Brett Johnson, who says, can putting a drip of low viscosity oil in a rim eyelet at the top of the nipple as part of periodic maintenance help prevent nipples seizing to the rim or spoke? Possibly, but I'm going to say not necessarily, because the oil may not actually get to the part that is, you know, in contact with the nipple and the spoke. Got a wheel over here. So dripping the oil, it might not get to the point where the actual thread is in the rim anyway. And also, I would say this is usually something you would do, like use an anti-seize when you're building it in the first place, so that when you put the nipple in and you tighten it up, it's already created that protective barrier when it was being built. Also, bear in mind that seizing is only usually something that will happen mainly with aluminium nipples, because it's a metal that is more likely to corrode and seize. If you have brass nipples, it's hard to identify, but they're usually black or brass colored, then you don't need to do that. It's not likely to seize. It's only aluminium nipples, which are often silver or colored, that will do that. So try and work out which ones you have in the first place, because it might not be a problem you need to fix anyway. So Abram Loth says, hi, I've got new hydraulic brakes and I noticed there was oil on the front rotor. I immediately cleaned it and it came back the next day. Could my fork be leaking on it, or is it the caliper? Yeah, I mean, it could be either, but I'm guessing as it's on the fork, which it doesn't, as it's on the disc, I would say it's probably the caliper, not the fork, because your fork tends to sort of be away from the disc and it would drip on the ground if it was dripping. But it depends where you found the drip. So I would say you need to do a bit of detective work. Use some cleaner, preferably some disc brake cleaner all over the disc, and just wait for it to dry and come back to it and see where that oil is. So if it's on the disc again, then, and it's not on the forks, you might need to remove your wheel, have a look at the calipers, take the pads out, inspect those. Is there oil around the calipers as well? I'm guessing it probably is a leak. Sometimes you get them with some oil that will come out of the pistons inside the brake caliper. So yeah, I think it's time for you to do a bit of detective work. And if you're saying that you've got new ones, if you can't fix that, you might want to think about asking the person you bought them from or the manufacturer of the brand of calipers that you've purchased. Might want to think about warrantying them if there is something mechanically unsound with them when you've just bought them and you haven't even used them. So yeah, detective work, clean everything and try and find that leak. And that's it. That's all we got time for. And if you've got any questions for us, then don't forget to use hashtag Ask GMBN Tech in any of our videos so that we can pick up that question and try and get back to you with an answer. So hopefully I've helped you, and I'll see you again next week. Thanks.